Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome for following me. It's Janice Butler, founder of Woman of Character Incorporated. And today I just wanted to ask the question, do you know how to recognize the triggers that come from being hurt or abused? Well, today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the triggers and help you to be able to identify them when you're going throughout your day or as they come upon you. So let me tell you a little story. As most of you all know, I am a domestic violence survivor and I was held hostage twice by my estranged husband. He, during the first hostage situation, he pulled a gun, loaded it with two shells, a shotgun, loaded it with two shells, put it up to my chest, and asked me, was I ready to meet my maker? All that after having waved around guns, threatening to kill me, and eventually he let me go, only by the grace of God. And then 2 weeks later, he came to my home and ended up holding me hostage again. Busted my head open with the butt of the gun. I was bleeding profusely. And we ended up being in a little over 5 hour hostage situation where SWAT was called, and we could hear them on my roof. We could see the infrareds coming through the windows. And all I could think of was, Lord, is it my time now? Because most of you all know my story, and if you haven't, you'll have to get my book, Torn Between Religion and Relationship, where I go into a lot more detail. But today I really wanted to just focus on helping you to identify some of the triggers that will come after trauma. And so after those ordeals, it took a lot of healing. I had to go through a period of healing, unmasking, unveiling, where God was just revealing who I was. He was showing me some of the decisions that I had made in my life, over my life, some that were in error and others that weren't. He was also showing me the plan that he had for me to be a speaker and to help other women and individuals that are affected by domestic violence. So in that healing process, you think that you're healed. You think that you're over a course of time, you think that, I've put those things behind me. But one thing I have come to know is that sometimes you don't know what your triggers are until something else happens. And triggers are those small things that remind you of what has happened to you, or takes you back in a moment of time where you were fearful, where anxiety came. It makes you think about the hurt and the pain that you experienced, either throughout your life or in a moment of time, right? So I remember just a few years after the incident, I was sitting at the gas station. With a friend, we were getting gas, and I saw these two young men walking up, just on a normal day. But all of a sudden, fear gripped me. I became afraid. I didn't know these guys from Adam. My friend was there pumping gas. So it wasn't like I was alone, but they came walking up, and I just went into kind of when you talk about fear, they talk about fear, flight, or freeze, and I froze. I was in that panic state of freezing, not knowing what to do, where to go, if something was getting ready to happen. All kinds of things went through my mind. Well, in that, I just began to pray. I'm like, Lord, what is this? What is this? Because I had not experienced that type of PTSD, what I know now as PTSD. And it was so eerie. And what I learned later was that the fear was triggered because my ex-husband had walked up on me while I was outside talking to two of my son's friends. And unbeknownst to me, he had walked up with a gun, and that's when I found myself in that second hostage situation. And so seeing these two young guys, not knowing who they were, of course we were in the hood, and not that all guys um, present fear or present a sign of danger. They were just probably out just enjoying their own day, right? But for me, it triggered something, just not knowing what their intent was. Because as they were approaching the car, they kept looking, they kept glancing, and it made me realize that I really wasn't healed totally. And so I kind of got through that situation. And how I got through it, like I said, is I just started praying, Lord, keep me. And then when my friend got back in the car, and we drove off, I felt the relief because I was no longer in a situation where I felt endangered. Fast forward years later, another situation that I went through was I was at the show with a friend. We went to see Training Day with Denzel Washington with his fine self, right? And at the very end, and I knew that there was gonna be, I knew the plot of the movie. I knew there was gonna be probably some gun shooting and things like that. But at the very end, when Denzel gets shot up, basically by all these men, I froze again. I held my breath and I could not move in this movie theater. Tears started rolling down my eyes, down my face, and and my friend was just looking at me like, what is going on? And he knew kind of what, I had been through, but the fear of it just came on me. It wasn't something that I was expecting, even though I kind of tried to prepare myself with knowing that, okay, there's going to be some gunshots, because I don't know if I said earlier, whenever I would hear gunshots, that would bring on just the fear, because I still don't like to hear gunshots, but I'm a little better now, and that was almost over 20 years ago. And so in the shot, I just froze. And so I'm like, wow, how weird is it that trauma, things that you have gone through, things that have hurt you, the pain that you may have felt, how it can come up years later, and just by either a sound, an action, a movement, a word that somebody might speak. So some things, one way to recognize whether or not what you're feeling is from the trauma or hurt, or is going to be triggered by that. Sometimes we don't know that things will get triggered. However, when they are triggered, or when those emotions, when those feelings are triggered, there are ways that you can settle yourself and come back and just rest and know that you will be okay. We don't have to be so fearful and so concerned with being hurt again, unless you, like I said, you find yourself in a situation where you can't get hurt. But being able to recognize the triggers that come helps with part of your healing. My last example that I want to give you is last year I went to the movie to see Queen and Slim, or Slim and Queen, however it goes, I'm sorry. And at the very end, again, when the police end up killing Slim, again, I went into this freeze mode. I had already thought, I wasn't expecting that type of ending. I knew that this was a chase, kind of a Bonnie and Clyde type movie for us as African Americans, but I just was not expecting that type of ending. And so I hadn't really prepared myself mentally for what I might see. And so when that came again, I just froze in the movie. And two of my girlfriends that I was with, they understood that what had happened to me. They understood where I was. One of them was a little aloof. She was like, okay, why is she crying like this? Because again, at that time, tears just started rolling down my eyes, and I'm trying to control myself, but it was like as though nothing, I couldn't do anything to stop it. Well, I want to give you a couple of tips that I have learned since, that even though I prepared myself, or thought I prepared myself mentally, I now know that triggers can happen at any given moment. Again, whether it's based off of a sound, whether it's based comes from a word that might be said, or something that you see, a trigger can happen at any time. But I want to assure you that when we recognize the trigger and we begin to feel the emotion, or feel the hurt, or feel the fear, or when we begin to freeze, or even in the flight stage, run away, I encourage you to stop and breathe and assess your surroundings. One, to make sure that you are safe, and two, to know that God says that He has a plan for you, and that plan is not to harm you. So when we begin to deal with those emotions that rise up due to the hurt and the pain, the rejection, the trauma that we have experienced, I encourage you to breathe. Breathe. Center your mind on something positive. And for me as a Christian, that's the Word of God. I began to recite the Word. Jeremiah 29:11, which most of you all know is my favorite scripture, that the Lord declares that I know the plans and the thoughts that I have for you, thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you hope and to bring you to an expected end. Another version says to give you peace and not to harm you. God's plan is not to harm you. Those triggers that come are only the enemy's way to keep you stuck and bound in the place that you may still be, where you haven't been able to release the hurt and the pain. And even when we know and we're walking in a place of healing, and we know that we've been set free, the enemy will still try to tell you that you're not. And so that's why I encourage you to just breathe. Just breathe, assess your surroundings, and know that God's plan is not to harm you. So I hope this was helpful. And I am Janice Butler, founder of Woman of Character, and we are here to encourage, empower, and educate women and individuals that have been affected by domestic violence. So if you have questions, please comment below. Send me a comment, send me a message, and let me know if this is helpful for you, or if there's something that you want us to help you with. No, I'm not a certified psychologist, but I am a survivor of life. I have been through a lot of things, and through that, God has given me the ability and the wherewithal to help other women and those that are affected, and not just with domestic violence, with any type of abuse, any type of trauma. Again, this is to help you recognize your triggers and then know what to do, because God has not given any harm to come to you. He is not there to harm you, but He is there to prosper you. So please leave your comments. Follow us on Facebook, at Woman of Character Incorporated. Go and like our page, and that's Woman with an A. On Instagram, it's WMOF and the word character spelled out. And here on YouTube at Janice E. Butler. So I thank you so much for following me, and I hope this message is a blessing to you. Bye. Thank you.